Full.
Good morning. This is the Kubernetes community meeting. Today is June 23rd, and we have a whole lot of fun ahead of us. It may be a slightly short meeting, so if you guys have things you want to discuss that aren't in the agendas, please feel free to throw it either into the agenda or send me a chat. Today we are going to get to see UpUp version 2. That's our demo this morning with Justin Santa Barbara. And then we're going to continue the release watch and talk about what release events are ahead of us going into next week at DevNation. We still have some space for stick reports if you want to, and we will hit notices at the end. And we will go straight now to Justin. So tell us all about the new Kubernetes Up, and there is also a new Kubernetes cluster and lifecycle special interest group that I've seen in the last 2 or 3 days getting busy. So you know more about that you can share as well, Justin?
Absolutely. So good morning, everyone. So just a quick bit of background then on that introduction. We're putting UpUp into maintenance mode, so we're not going to be adding a lot of new features into UpUp, but if there are any bugs, we'll obviously fix them. But instead, we're going to be looking at revamping the installation process, hopefully making it all a lot simpler. My effort in this regard is called UpUp. We're not calling it UpUp v2 because that would imply there's only one, but my effort is called UpUp. Mike Denise has an effort called minturnup, which is great. This is all happening in the GitHub kube deploy repo, and hopefully basically we'll consolidate a lot of the installation programs that are out, or systems that are out there, into that repo, and then work to make them all reliable and all simpler. And so I wanted to show you a demo of UpUp. I'm going to kick right off with a demo because it's early in the morning. Everyone needs a little bit of excitement. So we're going to create a cluster called demo9.awsdata.com, and we are going to create a cluster in 3 zones in the EU. So it's going to be an HA cluster. And what I'm going to do, CloudUp will basically, I'm running it in dry run mode. So what this is going to do is it's going to show me, is this in the way? I don't know if other people can see this. Let me hide that. There we are. This is going to show me all the things. I just ran CloudUp in dry run mode, asking it to basically pretend to create a cluster in these 3 EU zones, and it's told me all the resources that it would have created. So a bunch of, this is the equivalent of what happens in UpUp. You just can't necessarily see it right now. So it creates a bunch of secrets, a bunch of EBS volumes. It uploads your SSH key, your VPC, all those things. We just did that in dry run mode, so I'm now going to do the exact same command in real mode, where it's actually going to go and create the resources. So it is a little faster than UpUp, mostly because it really doesn't actually wait for everything to happen. And it finds an IAM bug, which is interesting, but it's going to recover from that. So it does retries automatically. And all right, so it has now created all the resources, and the cluster itself is probably not fully up because it has to boot up, but everything will happen asynchronously. There's no need to have a sort of management process that watches it. All the state is stored currently in S3, soon to be S3 or GCS. So here you can see the config file that we've created. We've actually uploaded all the SSL keys and secrets into that bucket. But we've basically got a simple YAML config file that says, we want to run on AWS. There's that cluster name. We're running with T2 larges in these zones. We've assigned some CIDRs to the subnets. So it's going to go and create that. The cool thing is then, of course, we can change that and reconfigure our cluster, which I know will make some people on AWS very happy. I wanted to quickly explain the architecture because otherwise it's a little bit complicated to understand exactly what's going on. So what we have is we have the CLI tool, which we just interacted with, and it uses a simple DSL, which is really basically just YAML and Golang templates, which is not the best, but is fairly ubiquitous. Maybe we can look at doing some better things later on there, but that's what we have right now. I'll quickly show you one of those templates. So here's AWS, the master, the auto scaling group for a master. So here you can see in each zone, we create an auto scaling group for each master because we're running HA master. So we want them to be in auto scaling groups and that's how we do it. So it's basically YAML with Go templates. It's acceptable, I think. But then underneath that is a sort of reliable tasks engine, which is, it takes the individual tasks that we've configured and will synchronize that declared state with the actual state. So when we're running in the direct to cloud mode, we'll actually go and create an auto-scaling group, for example, when you say auto-scaling group with this name. If we're running in dry run mode, which was the first mode we ran in, we'll just say, well, what would we change? And that will give us the output of everything that's different, which is nice both to preview what will happen, but also is very useful for diagnostics. So if you have a broken cluster, you can run it in dry run mode and see what is not right, what needs to change. And then the third, and more boxes over to the right-hand side here, is Terraform. So why didn't we just use Terraform here? Or why didn't I just use Terraform here? Well, the reason is Terraform is great, but then excludes people that want to use CloudFormation. So we'd have to, without CloudUp, we would have to maintain Terraform and CloudFormation and Ansible and Salt and all the other things that come along. Google Deployment Manager, Azure Deployment Manager. Instead, the idea is what we do is we maintain a single CloudUp manifest, keep it all working, and then we just output to Terraform. So I'm going to quickly show you outputting to Terraform. I got out of order there, but that's all right. So we are saying target Terraform. We are checking, and we've put the Terraform output into out Terraform. So if I look at out, you can see I have a Terraform file, and then I also have a bunch of supporting data files. And this is Terraform in all its glory. It's a fairly long Terraform file, but that's the way it is. And so now you can check that into your Git repo, apply that, do all those nice things. So if you love Terraform, you can use Terraform. Or if you want to just go quickly, you can just apply it directly. So one of the things, we previously ran the configuration. If we now do a quick dry run, we should see no changes. So we're doing a comparison there, and there we go. And completed successfully, no changes. So that means that the cluster is exactly as we expect it. We can also generate a kube config file. So there's this other command called UpUp, which is really a grab bag of other lifecycle management tools. Add-ons, delete a cluster, export a cluster, that's for upgrades. Kube config is managing your kube config, doing a rolling update of clusters when you change the configuration, managing secrets, and upgrading the cluster. So we just generated our kube config file, which means if we are lucky, the cluster we started, yay, is up. 3 masters, those are the scheduling disableds, one of which has only been up for 27 seconds, in an HA etcd cluster with DNS all set up, and we have 2 nodes. They should all be T2 large is what I think I asked for. Let's see if we can see that. There they are, T2 large. And we should also be able to see that they're spread across the zone. So 1A, 1B, 1C. So that's all good. And then, of course, we can do fun things like reconfigure our cluster. So we'll do a dry run reconfiguration, changing the node size to T2 medium. And it's going to tell us all the things that are going to change, which is not a lot. We're just changing the launch configuration to T2 medium. We could do that let's do that. It won't take long. So we're actually going to apply that for real because at least on AWS, even when you apply a change to an auto-scaling group, it doesn't actually make the change. So there's another tool you then have to do, which is called rolling update. So rolling update is currently fairly primitive, but will basically tell you, oh, look, here we are, your nodes need an update. And if you specified yes, it would have done a rolling update. Right now, the update's primitive. It will get better doing things like node eviction, things like that. We can do updates, for example, of a version. UpUp to UpUp is just another change just like that one. So again, a dry run, it will tell us if we were to update from 124 to 130. In order to do that, it will have to change the launch configurations. We'll do a rolling update. Everything will be great. Coming very, very, very soon, updating 1.1 to 1.2 into the UpUp family will be these commands. They're actually live, but they are very lightly tested. So coming really soon, but don't try it just yet. Finally, add-on management. This is sort of part of the general philosophy of our cluster lifecycle management. So right now, add-ons are done by the installer, and we would like to get as much as possible out of the installer. Here is one way we could do that. So basically, create a command in UpUp, which will do that. Here's a list of all our add-ons that we're running. We're running DNS and the namespace add-on. But we can like add the dashboard, and we can add standalone monitoring. And it's simple as that. Right now we're sourcing from a file, but we could source from anywhere. There is a problem right now with multiple masters and the way it's configured. Basically, they live on a file on the master, and we probably want to move that to S3. But that's the sort of thing we're going to be figuring out in SIG cluster lifecycle. But actually, in this case, we got lucky, so I should have kept my mouth shut. And we do actually have all the add-ons listed. So I obviously stayed on the same master for all the time. And if we look at the pods and all the namespaces, we should see the dashboard somewhere, which I added. Well, I guess I didn't get that lucky because I don't see it yet. Maybe it will poll and come up in a minute, but it will come up in a minute. And then finally, we can delete our cluster if we want to. So I'm going to delete the cluster. And it will go away. It will go down, down. So that was UpUp and down, down. I'm aiming for a stable release of UpUp in synchronization with the 1.3 release. And all the sort of work on this, and if you're excited by this, is going to happen in SIG cluster lifecycle, which used to be called SIG install, but is now SIG cluster lifecycle. So that is the demo of UpUp.
That's very cool. Do people have questions? I see a couple of things on the chat. So what is this using for networking between the masters and separate zones?
So right now, the networking configuration is the standard, or the one that comes up with UpUp. So the sort of built-in VPC advanced networking configuration on AWS and on GCE. It uses the just the same thing where you basically configure CIDRs, alternate CIDRs for each host. That works fine in between zones. It doesn't work in between regions. It doesn't work in between regions. But we could install other networking options like Flannel or Calico or Weave or whoever else I'm forgetting, and I apologize. But yes, we can do those as well.
Canal. Pat, so we have a question. The question that is always asked with these things: how can we contribute?
Contributions would be very, very welcome. This is all happening in the Kubernetes, in github.com/kubernetes/kube-deploy. That's where the code is happening. Basically, we're trying to merge. My understanding is we're trying to get all the installation tools to live in that repo. And then we will, through SIG cluster lifecycle, we will try to make them all work, according to a rationalized, streamlined installation approach that will be much better for everyone, so that even if you don't want to use an installation tool, if for whatever reason you don't like UpUp, crazy people, you will be able to just install it yourself.
Okay. So SIG kube deploy.
SIG cluster lifecycle.
Right. SIG cluster lifecycle and Kubernetes kube deploy. There we go.
Kubernetes kube deploy, yes.
Right. Okay. So there's some comments about addressing bare metal.
Yes, sir. A question there, if I could. I think this is a question maybe a few folks have, but just to regurgitate my understanding of kube deploy as a repository, Justin, are you saying that it's intended to be a catch-all repository for not only for a number of different lifecycle management tools, including the ones that you just done?
My belief is that they're all welcome to be in there. Yes, I don't think you're obliged. No one's going to say you have to put your code in there. But I mean, there was I think Mike Denise can probably talk more about the plans here. But we've put a maintenance mode notice on GitHub Kubernetes on the contrib directory. On the cluster directory, which is where UpUp lived before. And kube deploy, or Kubernetes kube deploy, is sort of the equivalent of Kubernetes contrib for installation programs. So,
I know other people have this same question, which is, so there's other similar type capabilities out there, Kubernetes Anywhere, and a number of other, efforts. Is this one just, and from your biased perspective, does this one have the most kind of momentum going forward, or just how are those?
My motivation in building it was twofold. One of which was to give an ongoing path for people that were using UpUp so that they can basically not be stuck when they want to run HA or something like that. So, I've done a lot of work on the AWS KubeUp. We need to keep people, they're using it, give them a way forward. So there's that. The other thing was I wanted to, by rewriting it in Go, so there's a lot of Go code behind this. It means that we're able to, I find it much easier to reason about what the installer is doing. So hopefully it will enable the work that we're doing in C cluster lifecycle to rationalize the installation process, which will benefit everyone. And finally, I didn't want to use, I didn't want to just use, let's say, Terraform or just use CloudFormation, because one of the things I saw from trying to help people was that a lot of people were only willing to use a particular tool. And so if I chose one tool, it would exclude everyone else. So that's the killer feature that means that I can't use Terraform, for example, is the ability to output in other formats. So Terraform, maybe CloudFormation in future, maybe Ansible. But I think long-term, the goal is to make sure that we don't have to output in other formats because it's so trivial. Like, it would be great if it was just a one-liner in each configuration system. I don't know if we'll ever get there, but we'll certainly get closer.
Cool. And so that Go code, in this case, like that Go code sort of replaced the need for sort of Ansible plus Terraform in this case. So the Go kind of.
Exactly. So the Go code is a state engine like Terraform. It's very similar to Terraform, right? And they're both Go and they do that, but it can also output to Terraform as well as running directly. Sarah, you're muted if you're saying something.
So we've had a couple of questions about Kube ecosystem extensions and add-ons. Do you want to address those, or do you want to hit people one-on-one while we go through the rest of the agenda? We've still got another couple minutes if you want to answer some of them.
You are welcome to extend it with add-ons. Definitely, that would be great. I think in general, if we can move, the goal is to get as much as possible out of the installer. So if you can run it as a daemon set or like literally an add-on that you can drop in, like I did the dashboard, you can't see my screen anymore, like I did the dashboard, then that means that you will work, with any installer and you won't have to be part of the installer. So that's great, but that doesn't work for everyone. It doesn't necessarily work, for example, for networking yet, although obviously we'd love to have it work for networking. So for that sort of thing, yes, any contributions are welcome, but if we can find a way to do it without needing the installer support, then that's doubly good for everyone, I think.
So there's also some questions around clarity on KubeUp. Is KubeUp as it is becoming deprecated?
It is not, we're not going to add features, but if there is a problem with it, we will fix it. Yep. So for example, a concrete example is it is going to be, I think it is hard to add HA support to KubeUp, and I don't particularly want to, it's hard to do it on AWS. So I don't think we're going to do that. I'm not planning on doing that, although I know some people might want it. So let's say that's probably not going to happen. But for example, if someone adds if Amazon launches another region tomorrow and we have to add support to KubeUp for that, we will do that.
Okay. That's a pretty good boundary set for that. There are also some other very specific questions as you go through the chat and catch up. I suspect you'll be able to answer them.
Yeah, I can answer them directly. That's easier.
Yeah, one-on-ones and such. Bare metal is one. Bare metal non-cloud. Bare
metal is trickier. There's nothing particularly stopping you using the NodeUp side, but it's certainly been focused on the cloud side. The concepts, like the engines, the state engine or the task engine, could work on Azure or bare metal or whatever it is, but right now there's certainly no bare metal support per se. I have thought about how to do it, but I haven't got there yet.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much, and thanks for, of course, digging into the whole cluster lifecycle and how to make this easier and better. If people want to join Cluster Lifecycle, they can find you on Slack and a Google group, both of which are going to be in the notes from this meeting. Is there a recurring meeting of any sort for it yet, or ever?
I think it literally was renamed yesterday, so I don't know if there is yet.
Okay, we'll clean up the docs behind that and figure out if there's going to be an ongoing event around that for discussions. Okay. Cool.
No, there is not yet an ongoing meeting yet. We need to organize some information before the initial meeting.
Yep.
So, for example, Justin's been working on this. Mike Denise has been working on this. The Weaveworks folks have been working on it. So
they're hiring someone who is going to be focusing on this.
Yeah, so we need to organize information so people can understand where we are and what's going on, because there are definitely multiple efforts in the space, and we need to create a list of areas where specific work items where people can help. But definitely there's lots to do, so definitely we would welcome the help.
Rationalizing the diaspora. And Joe is looking to say something because I see jump.
So I kicked the hornet's nest yesterday by opening a feature repro and an issue in the feature repo. This is great work. I do worry that there's just a ton of efforts here. There's a ton of confusion. We're just, I feel like we need to find a way to actually split this problem into smaller problems and layer things around. And so that's some of the stuff that I'd love to talk in the, I'm not a huge fan of the cluster lifecycle name, but what have you. I think, wherever we're going to discuss this, I think that's the right thing to talk about here. As a community, I'm going to say something controversial. I think we need to find a way to reduce the number of these tools and shrink them in scope. Because I think we're not doing ourselves any favors by having, 10 different things in the Cube deploy repo. I think it just confuses the heck out of everybody. And like UpUp sucks. I wrote it, most of it, and I'm sorry. It totally sucks. But I think the fact that there was one way initially actually helped streamline the process. And so, hopefully that's some of the stuff that we can do as we stuff moving forward.
It certainly would be good to rationalize it some and make it more clear, but generally I think what we're all looking to do and why there's been such a proliferation is we're trying to make it easier to onboard and to start. And people all have their own opinions about that, but I agree that getting from one to as many as there are now, we need to sort of back down to a few that are the likely use cases.
Yeah, so some of that work is already starting. For example, Kubernetes Anywhere is being merged with Mike's min turnip work.
Yep.
So there's consolidation happening.
That's fantastic. And hopefully we can come to much better user experiences and on the startup. Or as we've been saying, mean time to dopamine. We need to decrease the first positive experience for people who are coming to Kubernetes.
But what if my use case isn't one of your common ones that you're aiming for?
We are not saying
you're joking, right?
Pardon me?
Are you joking?
Pardon me?
Sorry, was that a joke? I actually just couldn't tell.
No, not a joke. No.
So,
I mean,
so
whenever you aim for the common
cases,
case, you're cutting off other cases, right? And
yes.
I'm able to use UpUp now, but how do I know you're going to continue to meet this scenario that I care about?
So,
What's your scenario?
Sorry, David.
Just let's back up a little bit. I think nobody's talking about removing flexibility here. I think what we're talking about is making the easy path easy, right? For the common scenarios, we want to make that as streamlined as possible. For instance, one of the things that people have been batting around is making the installation and management of etcd built in some way, whether it's built into the binary, whether it's automatically launched and managed for you. That is not a very ops-friendly way to do things. Anybody who's doing things at scale is going to want to run and manage etcd separately. But for the people who, run 3 commands on a set of machines, my Raspberry Pis, and I want to get some crap up and running, right? Mm-hmm. We need to reduce the sort of manual install instructions for the easy case to something that's tractable. Because right now you look at that manual install page and it's just daunting. I mean, people run away in fear there. And scaffolding around it will help, but that scaffolding isn't going to work for tons of people, and there's a lot of people who don't trust the scaffolding.
Okay. Right. So this is also why we created Minikube, which is an all-in-one streamlined install for your laptop. It's kind of similar to what the Docker announced, similar in spirit anyway. not as far along, but like Docker for Mac.
I mean, Brian, I respectfully disagree. What Docker announced was a single way to launch clusters that was built into the tool. It wasn't one of many choices. There was the official way to get this stuff up and running. Adding yet another thing that drives Kubernetes from the outside in a new way just creates more confusion instead of actually helping to guide people in the right direction. This is some of the stuff that we talk about in the SIG, but I think that the problem is we have too many choices right now, and that's what makes us look complex.
Yeah, I would temper your statement a little bit, Joe, in that there's a variety of ways that people configure Docker itself, and Docker brushed over that. So storage drivers, secret drivers, all those options just kind of excluded. So,
Yeah,
They made a shiny demo.
but no. I think, to be clear,
I'd like to apologize to all the Docker folks on this call right now, by the way. We're not being mean, we promise.
No, Sarah, I think it goes further than just a shiny demo. What they did is they chose sane defaults with a way to actually change those defaults. Those defaults will work for a large percentage of their users.
Yes.
Now, I think we can argue on whether those defaults are right or not. We can argue whether they have the right places to change those defaults. Like, I don't think that there's any affordances for actually having a separate store. I think you have to use their built-in store. I don't think that's the right decision. But they, I mean, I don't downplay the importance of what's going on there.
So I'd like to say I 100% agree with you, Joe. There's no question. We need a one-line thing that looks just like UpUp, because UpUp is actually the right experience. It's UpUp, blah, and it runs. It's just super fragile, and there's a bunch of things that we want to do. That said, they said themselves, it scales to 64 nodes. It doesn't go higher. They need, in their Azure demo on stage, they needed a separate control plane. There's a whole bunch of things that they are not saying. So let's be clear. It is a lot closer to Minikube than not. That said, our mission, one line, one cloud, that's it. Same defaults.
That's a discussion for a different time.
and I was just about to say that because we are coming up on the half hour. So it sounds like this is cluster lifecycle, and it's going to be a fun and exciting special interest group to join and participate in. But I think we're all in agreement that there needs to be an easy way to get people started with Kubernetes, as well as lots of configurability, extensibility, and options for people who need to tune things differently as their use cases are different, because that is one of the big benefits of Kubernetes. Okay, so up next is the continued excitement of the 1.3 watch. So Ihor, I think you were going to give us an update on where we are with 1.3 as far as the release, yes?
Yes. So at the current moment, we are still on track. So we're expecting to different releases, as desired, on June 21st. As it mentioned in the community meeting notes, you may find the items in the query. So right now we have 15 opened items that have to be fixed, but the most of the items are currently in progress, and also you may find the progress actual for the new features in the tracking dashboard that have been shared earlier on the previous meetings. So right now the most of the features are already merged. And right now, so for the most of the features, we're waiting only for the docs. So from this point of view, everything is fine. And right now, our engineers are working on fixing the issues that we currently have with the current release. So we're expecting to release as desired.
Fantastic. Did you want to go talking on and talk about the features repo as well, or do you want me to do the release?
Yes. So possibly we may speak about that right now. Possibly we may move to the next community meeting after we'll start the next iteration with 1.4. So as we have discussed on the previous community meeting. So I have moved all the items from the classic wiki page to like the repo with subdirectories and classic Markdown files. You may find the actual status with a link that is also posted in the meeting topics. At the same time, possibly someone has any suggestions regarding that format, so we may discuss that as well. So, anybody? I remember Brandon had some suggestions the last week regarding, so possibly should we move from wiki or shouldn't move, so what about it?
Ryan Grant, did he?
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Did you have comments on moving the tracking for 1.4 from a wiki page into the features repo or vice versa? I think a summary page somewhere in GitHub is nice.
Either, yeah, and the features repo is fine, similar to the community repo. It's intended to have permissive GitHub ACLs so that people can maintain it.
Actually looks like about, like, you know.
Sorry, what was that?
I think someone was not on mute. I've been trying to chase them.
Okay. Yeah, so it just should be somewhere that's easy to maintain. That's my main requirement.
Yeah, okay. So, and what about tracking using some tools? So what about Trello, for example, to dynamically manage and track these features?
As long as it's free and easy for people to use and find. And the beauty of GitHub as opposed to other spreadsheets and whatever is that it's easy for people to find and access.
Okay.
So I know some people in the community do use Trello. I don't have much experience with it personally, but you know, as long as people can sign in with GitHub credentials or something, then I don't really care.
Yeah, we at Red Hat use Trello a whole lot. I'm not sure what it brings to this process, but
Yeah.
I'd be happy to talk through if anybody sees ways that they think it could be useful. I'd be happy to talk to them about it.
Personally, I would prefer, and this is Derek from Red Hat, that we don't add Trello.
I'm with you on that one, that we try to keep it as consolidated as possible within GitHub.
Okay. Okay, and another question. So what format would be better for the Markdown files? Should we consolidate all the features in a single Markdown files we have right now, as I have prepared it, or possibly all the features have to be split into the separate Markdown files in a single repo? Like every feature has its own web page with its own Markdown file. What do you think about it?
Why does each feature need a separate Markdown file? Sorry, I mean, we have the tracking issues.
Right.
So
I think he's asking, do we want them to each have?
So I'm asking, so which way is more preferred? Because like me as a maintainer for all that stuff, it's easy to maintain a single file.
I'd say a single file with a little summary that links out to the feature issue.
Can I?
So in the past we had design proposals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's replace that.
I think Eric wants to jump in.
Yeah. Eric?
I'll say what my vision was for the features repo. It was, first of all, that people would only initiate things there when they had built consensus within a SIG. So for example, number 11 had not really built consensus. And so I put a lot of discussion. I envisioned the features repo as only having crisp status updates so that people could follow it without being bombarded with +1s and no, let's do it this ways. So that was one hope I had for it. The other hope I had was that it would not be a store of detailed work items that would be delegated to each SIG or sub-team or whatever, and then they want to use Trello or whatever, that's fine. This is a summary in an easily discoverable location for people that want to track the overall progress from a very high level for Kubernetes. And I had imagined that design docs did not belong in there, and that the proposal, the design docs thing happened in the main repo or somewhere else. And I could say a little more about that, but like that was my vision. I'm certainly open to hearing other stuff, but want to lay that out there.
So with respect to the number 11, yeah, I splattered that out there mostly as a way to have a meet-me point to start the discussions, because there were so many discussions across so many different mediums. It was, I talked to Dave, and he's like, okay, put something there. I just wanted to sort of, essentially have a standard that everybody could start driving towards to actually start some of these discussions.
Definitely need a meeting point. My hope is for future things like this, and this is the first time it's come up, so it's not a big thing, but like that we form a SIG if there's not a SIG, or do it in a SIG doc and just blast out to Kubernetes dev, here's where we're talking about it.
And so now the problem I have with the proposal stuff and the proposal doc directory is that there's this tendency for proposals to sit in PRs with all sorts of deltas, never actually get merged, never actually get rolled up into something that's readable. I still don't have a single document that describes what the hell a pet set is. We still don't have that. I asked Brian, he pointed me to 3 issues. You have to read through these things. There's one doc, I'm like, is this thing current? It's like, no, all the feedback hasn't actually been merged in yet. Right? If we're really going to drive this process, we have to view merging these things, keeping that stuff up to date as a key component of communicating what the hell's going on.
I agree.
So
and my hope was that
with having this stuff sit in proposals, but we have to drive to actually keep those things up to date while things are going on.
I agree.
That's a great example here.
I want the people who are the leaders of the feature repo to be concerned not with PetStat in particular, but that all proposals get completed, and that the feature tracking issues is a way for us to say, these guys did a good job of bringing their proposals into finalized design docs, and these guys didn't. Let's give them a hard time. I don't see it as a place where people who care about a specific proposal go to talk about that proposal.
And to be clear, so Derek just put in the comments, the stream here, a pointer to a pull request. That's the problem. It's a pull request.
This template is a starting point. If you want to make it be a pointer to something like,
I think these are separable from the feature repro, Eric. So this isn't a dig on the feature repro. I'm just saying that we have to view design docs as something that is an outward communication thing that has to be kept up to date. We can't force people to read 300 comment PRs to actually figure out what's going on with a feature.
Yeah, Joe, to be fair, the PR I pointed you to was the documentation for the 1.3 release on what PetSet is.
Oh, okay, so this is documented it after it was designed. Okay, we still don't have a design doc that's been merged.
These are user docs, not design docs.
Yeah, we still don't have a canonical design doc on this thing.
What about Clayton's one?
So that one needs to be updated, and Joe's point's fair, is that like a lot of releases, as we get closer, we spend less time on closing out design docs and more time on bugs and fixes and stuff. And I do think it's a critical part of communication. Although I will say for PetSet, it isn't a good example of the docs were really the only thing that was going to actually communicate what a PetSet was. So init containers would be a better example, I think.
But a lot of projects work with you write the user documentation first, right? In terms of what is the user experience around this stuff.
So one issue with
this is called a PRD.
One issue with PetSet is that it was fairly iterative. Also, the people working on it were very overloaded. So I totally agree we need to communicate better, but the design was not finalized.
So if people are overloaded, then we should do less and we should do it right.
I don't disagree.
Get to the point of the project where we can't be half-assing this stuff and just start throwing code around. I mean, we have to be able to communicate this stuff.
I agree.
Okay, I'll stop ranting.
So anyway, PetSet is going to be alpha.
All right. Yes, PetSet bad for a bunch of things. Sorry, go ahead, Derek.
If somebody wants to try to distill the issue and the unfinished design docs and proposals into a new design doc to see if they understand it and have, Clayton or Beeps review it, that might end us up with a good design doc sooner. So
That would be
That's,
helpful.
there's no rule that says the guy that should have written the design doc has to be the one that actually, or gal, it has to be the one that actually does do it.
I would love to see that the update to the design doc happens like before the coder is written, or at least as the code is getting merged.
And I'd like a pony, Joe. Sometimes stuff doesn't happen.
Okay, hold on.
That is not helpful.
So to be clear, enough. To be clear, let's not have this discussion here. We have the feature repo. Joe did the right thing, opened up an issue in the feature repo. The issue is not the design issue. It is not a design doc. It is nothing. The first line of the issue tracker says, build a proposal. So to be clear, this is an iterative thing. We're working on it. This is the first time. The next step, the next logical step for this and any feature is to create a proposal that is kept up to date and linked to from the issue. So there we go. Okay.
And I don't think anyone in this entire group is opposed to us finding better paths and improving the process as we go. I have continually heard from people in the community, yes, this is still hard. Yes, this is still broken, but it's so much better than it was in 1.2, 1.1, 1.0. So all of this is important discussion with perhaps less hyperbole and specific focus on pet ed or other issues, because they do differ in the way they are executed sometimes. But tying this up and improving continually is important. So I think we're moving forward on a better way to do feature tracking. Ihor, thank you. I know you and Mike have spent a bunch of time trying to, after the fact, pull together, or as the bug fixes are happening toward 1.3, pull together a coherent vision of what is going to go into 1.3, and that's fantastic. Thank you. So I'm going to jump back to the 1.3 release and talk about what we're doing to promote it and how you all in the community might be able to help. Clearly, we have a lot of work to make the 1.4 planning and execution processes better, and that's exactly why the PM group has been pulled together and why we are spending our effort in 1.5 or 1.4 trying to make everyone's experience, users, developers, and contributors, so cluster operators, developer users, and developers of Kubernetes make that experience better. That's really the big focus of 1.4. So clearly it's something we need to spend time on. 1.3 release events. Monday morning, so Ihor pointed out that we're going to cut the release on Friday afternoon. That's the intent. And we are going to give the Kates.io blog post will go out on Monday morning. And then Monday evening at Dev Nation, there's a keynote space, and Dave Aronchik, as well as Ashish and Matt from OpenShift Engineering at Red Hat are going to be giving a keynote at Dev Nation. And then Tuesday morning, there is a deep dive at Dev Nation about what is in the 1.3 features. We are looking for customers or users of Kubernetes 1.3 to be part of that Tuesday morning talk, if that works. So if you are interested and want to spend the weekend helping pull together some slides and make that presentation helpful and have a user focus and a user distilled view, then please reach out to me, or why don't you reach out to me and I'll get you connected to the right people to make sure that we can get you into that talk if it fits the storyline of what we're trying to bring forward with 1.3. So that's the release events. The things that the community can really help with is promoting and amplifying whatever you see coming out around positive around Kubernetes, of course, the blog posts, feedback on the keynotes, etc., as well as blogging or setting up articles of your own experience or what you're looking forward to in 1.3 or what you're super excited to see. So if you make that sort of makes that sort of effort and publish something, please feel free to share it back with me and Bob Herdinsky, and we can make sure that it is also amplified in the reverse from Kubernetes Twitter account, and we can link to it from other social media and such. So that is super helpful. We would love more noise about 1.3, of course. Anybody have questions about the 1.3 release event work and everything that's happening around the release?
Yeah. Hey, Sarah, real quick question about the submit queue. So assuming the 1.3 release gets cut on Friday afternoon, does that mean the submit queue is then going to open up for 1.4 related work on Friday afternoon? Or
that would be my plan.
That's the hope for outcome. As long as we don't grow a lot more P0s. We are growing some more P0s. If the P0 list gets a lot longer because we discover more bugs, then no. But if it gets stable, gets shorter, then we'll open it up.
I would like to open up the submit queue as soon as possible, but we have to get the release finished.
No, I totally understand. It's just I'm looking for the last submit queue status message that you posted to the Kubernetes dev mailing list, Daniel, since that seems to be like the only way I can consistently keep up with what's sort of been happening there. And at the moment, maybe I'm just like missing it, but I don't see a published schedule that says like when we're going to go back to 1.4. And then you bring up P0, P1. I'm sure this isn't the case, but I'm just a little confused right now. Does this mean that like the submit queue is only looking at P0 and P1 bugs, or is it just...
No, so the submit queue is only looking at things marked 1.3 milestone. We've been discussing in the burn down meeting every day whether it's safe to open it up for everything, and thus far it's been like we don't want to block anything that's slated for 1.3 yet.
Yep. Okay, that makes sense. So I guess the plan then is to just look for a notification on Kubernetes dev when submit queue gets opened back up.
Yeah. When I restart it to do that, I'll definitely send a notification.
Okay, thanks.
Daniel mentioned the burn down meeting, which actually is a mostly open meeting. If you're interested in participating, it's not closed, but we aren't inviting everyone on this list because it's just another meeting and it's happening a lot. So if you are interested in that burn down meeting, please reach out to me or to TJ Goldferman, and we will make sure that you get added to that. Now, this may be more toward the 1.4 release burn down meetings because we'll build that burn down meeting off of this one. But if you're interested, please let us know. It's not trying to be, it's trying to be only not noise on your calendar, not trying to exclude anyone. All right. Any more questions on 1.3 release? Release events, release marketing, release fun, release community. Okay, then I will talk about the last two notices, which are actually about the 1.3 release, oddly enough. So I scheduled and did invite everyone on this meeting to the 1.3 postmortem. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. And we said we wanted to carve out a specific time outside of this meeting to do a formal postmortem. And Jason Dumarge has offered to be the facilitator on that. He's done a bunch of postmortems in the past. And this is scheduled for Friday at 10 a.m. I wanted to do it after as much of the PR and event and post technical release, but still releasing marketing is happening. So trying to do that after all of the release as well as before the 4th of July put us on Friday morning the 1st. So hopefully that works for people, and we will look forward to having Jason facilitate that. He's also just got barraged earlier this week with the last two community meeting videos that have our last two postmortems and the notes from those. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he changes what we've done in the past. Thank you, Jason. So that's the 1.3 postmortem, and then the 1.3 contributor happy hour. So thank you, contributor user 1.3 Kubernetes happy hour, let's call it that. is being hosted by CoreOS in San Francisco around the Dev Nation Summit. And I put a link to RSVP if you're interested in participating. And that, if I'm remembering correctly, is Tuesday night next week. Yes. So that will be happening in San Francisco. So those of you who are local, please feel free to join us, and we will have a social. I talked about our Fix-It that we're doing inside Google, and TJ talked about this a little bit last week as well. Next week is the Google Technical Infrastructure Fix-It week that is happening around GKE and Kubernetes. And the idea with Fix-Its is to try to burn down a bunch of bugs and a bunch of little things that have been bothering everyone technically for a while. Now, to get the community involved, we are working to pull together a couple of onboarding events for new community contributors. I still don't have specifics on those, but my hope is that I will be able to send that out today or tomorrow. We do have this, the postmortem that's happening on Friday, so we're looking at Monday and Tuesday in the 10 a.m. slots for those. We'll see if that ends up working out. And what I also want to say is, as bounties for next week, some of you may have seen on after OSCON that we now have Kubernetes patches, like actual embroidered patches. So anyone who submits a pull request next week, I'm going to then have someone who is starting to help me in community next week go reach out to you and start mailing you all patches to say, specifically, we will do it for next week's Fix-It, to send out patches for pull requests. We will, over longer term, try and get everyone who's a contributor patches. But in the short term, if you put in a pull request next week during the Fix-It, so Monday to Friday, I don't want to encourage people to work on weekends too much. But if people put in pull requests next week, we will send you embroidered patches for your submissions. And I think I just spent a whole bunch of time for that poor new person at a post office. So next week, help us fix all those little annoying bugs, technical things that you've been being bothered by, and we'll get those in ahead of the 1.4 kickoff. Anyone else have any topics that they want to cover in the last 5 minutes? All right. Have a great week, and we will see you at potentially burn down meetings or next week at the community meeting, or I will send more information about the other things we're doing around the Fix-It week. So have a great week, and we will see you soon. Thanks.
Thanks all.
And good, bye.
Thank you, Sarah, for organizing this.
Yeah, you are more than welcome. It's great fun to do it each week.
I'll be in, what do you call it, Red Hat Summit in Dev Nation if anyone's around in San Francisco and wants to chat.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.